Hello, my beautiful seekers and finders. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Teja Anand. I have met him a long time ago from my time at Quora when I was very active at Quora, and I'm sure many of you know him from his Quora writings. He is a prolific writer on the Quora platform, but he also has his own website and he has his own YouTube channel, and the links will all be in the description. So we'll have a free-flowing conversation about the spiritual path with him today, and hopefully in the future, if you have any questions for him, that we'll be able to bring him back again, and he will be able to answer your questions too. So please welcome Teja. Hi. Hello, my friend. Hi.
It's a joy to see you. We've talked a lot over typed text
Mm-hmm.
and once on the telephone, but this is the
Yep.
first time we're face to face, and it's a pleasure.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Yes, I don't think that I have ever spoken to you on video, so it's a big pleasure for me also to be able to speak to you on video. You're in California, by the way, right?
Yeah, Southern California, a little town called Ojai.
Oh, I know this. I know this place. I've never been there, but I've been looking at some places to maybe move, and sometimes it pops up. It's pretty hot there, no? Or am I confusing it with?
It is because it's in a surrounded valley, so the heat stays in. So 25 minutes away is Ventura and Santa Barbara, and they both are much cooler because they're right on the coast. But where we are, it gets right now. It's going to be 95 today. So.
Oh yeah, that's hot. That's hot. Yeah.
But Ojai is familiar to some people on the spiritual path because it's the home of Krishnamurti. He lived here for the last 35 years.
Right. And that's actually also why it rings a bell. Yeah.
He established a lot of institutions, and because he was here during a very popular period where people from all over the world wanted to come to see him and listen to him lecture, it just so happens to be he's kind of responsible for the growth of the community.
Oh, really? How interesting. It's spelled with a J, right? Oja, right?
Ojai.
Yes, that's the one. Yes. He I think that he was either born there or died there. I think he died there, right? No?
He died here. He was born in India.
Oh, right.
He didn't get here until he was well into his 40s, but he lived the rest of his life here. Yeah.
Nice. And that's Jiddu, just for
Jiddu Krishnamurti, not you,
there are two of them. Yes. I actually looked at his Wikipedia page not too long ago, and I was surprised to see the same familiar town that pops up sometimes in Zillow. Yeah. Oh, hi, interesting. Yeah, I should visit you maybe sometime.
Please do.
I would love to see if there are any remains of Krishnamurti flowing in the air.
His aura still hangs over the place. I make a joke because I guide meditation here 3 times a week, and sometimes there's very few people. And so somebody came up to me at the end of a meditation and said, well, you're a good guide. How come there aren't more people? And I said, because this is Ojai. Everybody here is already enlightened. What do they need to come here for?
That's a good response.
So it's a very arty, cultural little town. It's only got 8,000 people in it.
That's wow, so small.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, yeah, that was interesting to find out about you. Thank you. And yeah, again, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you like this. I have never spoken to you before. So for my viewers, of course, I will also link them to your work. But for my viewers, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your spiritual path, how you have gotten into it, and how the ultimate realization ultimately came to be. So I think it would be interesting to hear.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
I don't mind. And it'll be interesting because I don't relate to it as much as a cause and effect path anymore. But I'll give a little bit of chronology just to answer your question. But I seem to be called to a spiritual path at a very young age. And at around 5 years old, I had climbed a tree. And while I was up in the tree, I had an experience as clear as, you and I are right now, or even clearer in reality, that this reality was just the dream. It was the illusion. It wasn't the real reality. And I almost fell out of the tree. And I came down, and that was the beginning of it. I ran in to tell my mother that this is just a dream, to get it confirmed. And she actually wanted to call the child psychiatrist the next morning. It's okay. And at 16, the experiences of the state of being just pure energy and being in a dream that was just pure energy were growing, and I felt like I needed some guidance. And I started to follow a teacher named Swami Satchidananda. And he was pretty popular at that time because he had about 25 branches of his integral yoga institutes around the country. So several of them are still in practice. He's long since passed away. And I moved into his ashram by the time I was 18, and I took sannyas vows, shaved my head, nothing but a bowl and a robe, the whole full-on deal.
Wow. I had no idea you were so deeply into it from such a young age.
Yeah. And I got a lot of wonderful wisdom from him, but I didn't feel like that was all of it. So I moved on after about 10 years. I was fortunate because I got to serve him directly a lot and cook for him and work for him directly. And so, but I left there and continued my path. And I think probably somewhere in my late 30s or 40s, I started to feel really attracted to a more of a non-dual approach. And I felt called towards two people in particular, which was Ramana Maharshi and Sri Nisargadatta, who wrote the book I Am That.
Yep.
And I started taking solo trips into the woods and doing retreats, extended retreats in the woods. And this incident happened, and I hesitate to say that the incident was cause and effect to the realization, or even that there was a realization. But it's a fun story because it's true, and that is I was meditating in a meadow which was surrounded by trees. So I was in a circle of trees, and I heard this sound of hooves coming towards me, or it sounded like they might be coming towards me. And I opened my eyes from the meditation, and there was a 12-point buck charging towards me at maximum speed. And I thought, this is going to be interesting. There was a beautiful, beautiful deer, buck deer with great antlers. And it charged right to a point about 100 feet away in the circle, took a right turn and did a circumvent around me, came right back to the space where it had stopped to make the turn, right back to the top point of the circle, and looked at me, and the face changed. And it was Ramana Maharshi's face, which looks really cool with all those antlers, by the way. And that was it. It turned and ran into the distance from which it came. And I felt everything drop away that was a sense of constriction or contraction. Everything. And it wasn't like just a oneness experience. It wasn't like I'm now one with being or anything like that. It was more like this is just energy, and it's free now. It's no longer, it doesn't have to be contracted into the illusion of a body and a mind and even a separate self. And simultaneously, I was still able to be in the body and move around, and so they exist simultaneously, don't they? You're here, I'm here, but at the same time, that was it. And I felt like Ramana was somehow a spiritual grandfather to me, and I've felt a presence from his energy many, many times since then. And I guess that's it. I don't know what else to say.
When did that happen?
Well, I'm 70.
Uh-huh.
So
you look wonderful, by the way. I had to say it.
So
if I look like you when I'm 70, I'm going to be a happy camper.
Well, you look great now.
I'm thank you. I'm 47. We're still pretty. We're 23 years apart.
Well, I think that it was at around your age that this happened.
Oh,
late 30s, and continued to expand through my 40s and 50s. And I never stayed with any particular teacher after that. But I noticed information coming in from other teachers, from Ramana, from Sri Nisargadatta, from Krishnamurti. And I noticed that it just reconfirmed what had already happened. And then I had people come, and say, okay, something happened to you. Talk to us about it. Can we do something to make that happen to us too? And I never really thought about being a teacher. And now that I've actually been a teacher for I don't know how many years, it's no different to me than if they ask me to come over and sweep their floor. I don't hold anything I say or anything I have to offer as coming from me or being special in any way. But conversations happen. We're here, we're in the dream, and we love talking to each other and relating to each other. And conversations happen, and I was a professional musician all of this time. I was a professional musician since I was a youngster.
What did you play?
I'm a pianist, and I also play pretty fair guitar, but mostly I'm a pianist. And I was able to get to the level with my musicianship to play in major recording sessions and on major stages, and play with, I don't know, what kind of music do you like to listen to?
Nowadays, I don't listen to much music. For the last decade, it was mostly electronic music. I was never into classical music. I mean, when I was young, I was into kind of classical rock, like Pink Floyd, like alternative rock, like REM. But for the last decade, it's mostly electronic music without words. Never got the classical bug. I mean, I know the names of famous composers, but never was able to really enjoy it. When I was young, it was just too boring to me.
Well, classical was what I brought up on, but then I veered into pop and jazz and got to play with Dave Brubeck and Elton John and people like that.
You played with Elton John?
Yeah, I did.
Impressive.
So I worked in the studio with Dan Fogelberg, old folk singer that you might have heard of.
No, unfortunately not. But then no Elton John, of course.
So I've had a very musical life, and so when I'm not doing this, I'm playing music, and then whatever the melo is and whatever kind of people are surrounded, they may or may not say, "Hey, I want to pull you aside from your piano because I got some questions for you about, awakening," or something like that.
How did music change for you?
How did music what?
Change for you? Playing music, or perception of music, or your relationship with music?
There was always a freedom for me when I sit down at the piano. Music just kind of flows. So I probably am not noting that much of a change. It seems to flow even easier now. There's no goals or expectations. That probably would be the only thing that felt a little constricted before when I was playing was I need to get this piece just right.
Mm.
And that's gone. That's
the
gone.
stress of it. Yeah.
Uh,
Did the perception, did the perception of sound became richer in some way over the years?
Yeah, I guess so.
Probably.
And there were a couple of times when I was very young that I did some hallucinogenic journeys and I watched the music literally flowing visually out of the piano and stuff like that. And that was always cool.
Yeah, I've had those experiences too. I mean, one time at a psytrance party, actually, I was standing next to a speaker, and I also, I think I took some LSD or something like that. I don't quite remember, but I was looking at the speaker, and there's a bass like boom boom boom, and I would actually see what I thought. I think it's a hallucinatory experience. I don't think it's like reality, but I saw what looked like airwaves coming from the speaker in precisely synchronized to the sound. So I would actually kind of see the airwaves like boom, and they were like whew, boom. It was a very interesting experience. There are a lot of synesthesia like experiences that can happen on
smelling colors and things like
Yep.
that.
Yep. Music can become colors, kind of all sorts of stuff. And it was very, very interesting that you brought up how a deer face became Ramana face. So I've also had those experiences with other people where their faces changed. And actually, one time a student came visiting me, and he was looking at my face. We were just sitting together in silence, and he was looking at my face, and my face started changing forms in all sorts of kind of archetypes, angry and sad and all of this. It was very bizarre to him. It was so funny for me. I of course have no awareness of it happening, but he was looking at me, and he was like, I was like, "What's going on, my friend?" And he's like, "Your face begins to change." Yeah, so the dreaming mind is such an extraordinary, wondrous, and potent reality distortion.
It is. And I only partake a few times when I was younger. I wasn't really a big fan of the full-on psychedelic experience as something I wanted to repeat often, but more like a sacrament, to take it in a sacred way and see what messages might come through that might sustain afterwards.
So tell me, my friend, thank you very much for this, by the way. Thank you. So tell me, what is your method nowadays? How do you guide people? The people that come to you and ask you, how do you mostly, like, what's your approach, basically? What is your approach to teaching?
Well, boy, it's a pretty non-approach, because my this experience over here, is that we're not the doers. We're just being done. There really is only, I call it being. We can use any word you like, consciousness, awareness, whatever. But this is just energy, which used to be formless, and for 70 years it's taking form, right? And then it'll go back into the formless. But that's all just the dream. And there's only one reality. There's only one absolute reality. And just for the sake of conversation, I use the term being, but I know that it's hopelessly inadequate, but we'll go with that. And so when people say, well, what can I do? I have to say nothing. I have to say, you will feel compelled to do something, because that's what the dream is about. You will feel compelled to ask the question, what can I do? You will even feel compelled to feel disappointment when I tell you there's nothing you can do. That's all part of the activity of this energy that's appearing, that's in the dream. So, then we have satsangs and retreats, or I answer questions on Quora or whatever. And mostly what I'm trying to point to is that this is just energy. There's just being, and there's no you who's doing anything. There's nothing that you can do. Now that that's been established, let's do something. What would you like to do? Would you like to go into silence, into meditation? Would you like to try breathing practices? Would you like to, anything that, as long as there's no expectation behind it, that anything is going to, you're not going to get enlightened. No matter what you do, you're not going to get enlightened. And so this is what is. And then if there's a place where you can kind of drop into the what isness of what is, instead of constantly trying to make it into what isn't, you will feel extraordinary, and it will be a great liberation for you. But don't call it liberation. Don't call it enlightenment. Don't call it any of those things. Don't put it in a conceptual box. Just say, oh, I let go and I feel better now. That's enough, and don't compare the level of advancement to somebody else's level of advancement. There's no spiritual progress because there's nobody to have it. There's no separate entity to make spiritual progress over this illusion called time. So don't go there with it. Just moment by moment. Okay, right now in this moment, I seem to feel the ability to just completely let go. I don't even know why, but I just feel like I could close my eyes or keep them open, be in silence, and just be free. Just be free. And if that's what's happening in this moment, beautiful. You don't have to label it. That's great. And if in the next moment it all contracts again and you feel contracted again, that's also perfect. That's absolutely perfect, because it seems like our function in this dream is to be a dream character. It's not to be awakened or to be enlightened, which is why it's such a rare experience. 1 out of every 10 billion people have ever had what they call full enlightenment, because that's not our function here. Our function here is to be dream characters. That's why we're being dreamed. And so if you go in and out of states, that's all happening in being, in the dream. It's not the escape from the dream. Those are just states. And so I try to urge people to not look for states. You want to meditate? Meditate. You don't want to meditate? Don't meditate. And it seems like there's something that can take place in relationship with somebody who is freer.
Yes.
It's kind of like an osmotic pressure. You just be around them and something starts to fall away.
Yes.
One of my favorite modern teachers is a guy named Tony Parsons. You might have heard of him.
Yes.
And he says it really nicely. He says, when something, a person who thinks they're still something, that they are still a someone, a separate someone, when something bumps into nothing, a realization can take place, simply because there's a mirror there and they see, oh, wait a minute, I'm nothing too. And it's not because of anything that the teacher says. It's just,
Or does.
or does.
It's actually more about what they don't do.
Exactly. So for me, it probably sounds like I just spent 5 minutes describing doing absolutely nothing to teach anybody anything, which is probably true. But at the same time, people keep saying, be around me, or let's talk, or let's have a Zoom meeting or something like that. And inevitably, they report back later and they say, something changed while we were talking. Something shifted. I don't know if it's permanent. It might sustain, it might not. But I feel like I saw an opening there that I wasn't seeing before. So that's all I can provide or appear to provide.
Beautiful. Beautiful, my friend. Beautiful. Thank you. And my next question would be, what are what is the most common kind of question or challenge or an obstacle that people come to you with?
The sense of a separate self, the identification with the separate self. Maybe people call it ego or something like that.
Limited self. There are many words for it.
Yeah, I mean, the
Separate
dream
self.
character. I like the dream character because it seems to help, and as an analogy, to compare what we're going through in this waking dream to what we experience in the night dreams. And so I like that term too.
They're very
And
similar, by the way. Yeah. But from my perspective, the only difference is that during the night dream, there is no sense reality. So the mind sort of creates an
yeah,
alternate reality for a while.
right.
But during the waking state, there is sense reality. So the only thing the mind can do is dream on the level of thought or distort the sense reality to a greater or lesser extent.
Right.
But it's difficult to just dream up a completely
Right.
new. Yeah, but fundamentally, it's the same. It's the same process. So even awakening, even in the waking state, literally feels like so. Many people don't understand that. Of course, it can get much scarier and weird, but in some way, it literally feels like waking up from a night dream.
It,
Not in the way that you wake up from one reality to another, but in the way of like, oh, that wasn't real.
exactly. So the obstacle or the question that comes the most, right? The first question is, what is enlightenment?
Hmm.
The second question is, how do I get there? Right. And then what I usually respond with is, who's looking for that and why? Because if you get to the core of who is looking for enlightenment and why, what's the compulsion for it, you're going to have 90% of the journey done, out of the way.
And they say me, and you say try to find that me.
Yeah, which is not existent, so you can't find it. But the first level of it is usually the fact that they're disappointed with that answer and that they're frustrated because they were hoping to get a method or instruction manual, do this, meditate this way, sit this way, and eventually, take these mind altering substances, go off in a cave for 10 years, do something. So they're looking for this imaginary thing called self-realization or enlightenment. And so they don't really want to hear, oh, I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen in that way. And so then if they stick with it, the next step is, oh, I see. The real reason that I'm even asking about enlightenment or getting awakened or something like that is because I'm not here now. I'm with the identity that feels like it's a separate identity who is suffering, and I want to end my suffering. So actually, this so-called noble journey of getting enlightened is really nothing more or less than escapism. It's most people who ask the question, 99%, are just trying to escape the dream.
Well, yes, of course, yes. Because the only the only way that you would be seeking enlightenment is because you suffer.
Yeah, well, it's true. I think it was Satyananda who said, "Don't try to teach a happy man about enlightenment; he won't listen."
Yes, of course. If you're happy and peaceful, and if you're being yourself, it's an absurd pursuit. It cannot even occur to you.
I know.
Yeah.
And so, just that much, just getting, oh, I'm trying to escape the dream. It opens up a lot of doors, both psychologically and spiritually for the person, because then they can say, oh, I get it. I'm really no different than a guy who's in the alley shooting up heroin. He's trying to escape the dream too, and that's how he does it. There's nothing noble about this journey. What's more, I'm not even the one who caused myself to take this journey. If you look at all of the factors that led up to me being who I am, the place of birth, the parents, their religion, the ancient history behind it. I have absolutely no control that I am now a person seeking enlightenment, you know. And so you begin to divest yourself of that identity, at least that much. And then if something's going to happen, it seems like it starts to open up from there, and it's just a question of relationship and being with it and exploring it more self-inquiry and stuff like that. So that's the biggest obstacle is that they want personal enlightenment, right? They want to get enlightened and then be around to really dig it. Oh, what's this business of my identity dissolving? I don't want that, because then I'll get enlightened, but I won't know that I'm enlightened because I won't have an identity anymore. They don't like that. So the obstacle is that they keep coming back to, yeah, but what can I do? You seem to, but I'm not. What can I do to get like that? What can I do? And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I say that totally without judgment. I was that way. When I was young, I was seeking enlightenment because it was, what can I do to stop my suffering? So I understand. But I know that it's a loop. You can't get out of your suffering that way. So
No.
So I keep pointing them to, to see that and to let go of that more and more.
Is there any practical advice you give them? or are you just mostly confusing their minds more and more? which is by the way, there's nothing wrong with that either. That's how a lot of people get to their
And I'm not even
realization.
trying to confuse their minds. I'm actually trying to be really clear. But the message is so arcane to somebody who thinks of themselves as a separate seeker who's trying to find something.
Yes, it's. I wasn't trying to suggest you are not clear. I was trying to suggest that this clarity is. I was saying that this clarity is very confusing to the separate self.
Right. And so then somebody might say, well, that's not helpful. Do you have any practical advice? And I say there's things that you can appear to do as if you're, so sure, let's talk about meditation. I know just about, I'm fairly diverse in every meditation method. I've done acres of Vipassana, Japa Mala, meditation on pure awareness, all those kind of things, lots of Zen. And so let's go down that tunnel and let's see which one fits for you, And if they say, well, should I be a vegetarian or should I restrain from, should be celibate or something like that? No, don't do any of that stuff. That's ridiculous.
I agree.
Do I have to live alone? Should I leave my wife and go off and live as a hermit or a monk? Nope, tried that. Didn't work. As a matter of fact, it's a good time to invite them to study the one portion of Buddha's life which almost nobody ever studies, which is that he tried everything and it didn't work. And he actually had to stop trying and let go in order for his liberation to take place. And yet there's this massive religion that got built up around him, which 90% of which is built on methods, meditation, and getting to this thing called nibbana or nirvana or something like that. So it's been completely distorted in that way. I remember once you had written a Quora answer. It was so dynamic. I loved it because somebody was asking questions about the Buddha and his enlightenment. And your response was, actually, it would be better if the Buddha had never lived.
I don't remember that. Yeah. but
he
actually,
just screwed it up for everybody. He was confused.
Buddhism is certainly a tremendous amount of confusion, just like any religion. I mean, it's you're absolutely right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's very difficult to let go of an idea of some sort of achievement.
Yeah.
And the absolute majority of people well, actually, all of them. If you're seeking enlightenment, then you're seeking then you're trying to achieve something. You're trying to get, you're under this illusion that only if you do something, if only you did something, then you would become happy.
Right.
That you need something to be happy. You need something to realize the truth of your nature. You need to do something. And yes, of course, but Buddhism, tremendously perverted nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With regards to meditation, though, I have to say that it jives very well with what you were saying before, because meditation, if you look at it from a certain perspective, is the ultimate practice of not doing anything.
Right.
And then what happens is you realize how difficult it is
Yeah.
to not do anything, and that leads to kind of inner exploration. So
Yeah. People say, why is meditation so hard?
mm,
And I say, because you're just sitting there doing nothing, which means you have to spend time with this insane voice in your head.
yep,
Who wants to do that? I mean, that's
yep,
that's a real challenge.
yep,
You just have to hear it spinning and spinning and spinning, and
yep.
so it is hard. It's very difficult. Most people don't want to stick with it. That's why they
And
stop.
yeah, exactly. And it's, by the way, it's the same question when people ask, why is meditation so hard? It's the same question as why is doing nothing for me so difficult?
Yeah.
Why is resting for me so difficult? Why am I always restless? And that leads to, actually, it's analogous to saying, well, why am I always dissatisfied?
Right.
And that can be a fruitful exploration. And that leads to suffering, which cannot be transcended. It can only be explored and accepted. And through
Exactly.
that, it is being let go of.
And to that extent, one of the things that I try to lead people into is an inquiry about what being includes, and say, you keep trying to. One of my favorite quotes of all time, Sri Nisargadatta, who basically says, why are you trying to escape from the dream? Just
Mm.
realize you're dreaming a dream you call the world, and stop complaining. Your problem is not the dream. It's that you love some parts of the dream but don't love other parts of it. And
Yeah,
that
it
is
said,
so true.
love it all or hate it all,
Yeah.
or something, but don't pick and choose. Yeah, I think, yeah,
And
I
so
remember this quote. Yeah,
I try to lead them into, can you imagine that your suffering is not an aberration that needs to be gotten rid of? Can you possibly take a journey with me and imagine that this is everything? You can just call it this everything. And this everything includes suffering. That includes challenges, not just the good stuff. Why? Don't ask why. You'll never know. Our human minds are incapable of piercing the why of this appearance, this illusion, this dream. So don't ask about that. You can't know that. But you're here and you're having good times and bad times. Can you go to that place where it all belongs? Doesn't mean it's going to feel good. Doesn't mean that when you're suffering, it's, oh, I feel so much better now that I know this belongs. No, it's not like that. It's just that you're able to embody each moment now, except for just the good moments, and then the moments where you're waiting to get out of the bad moments. Now you can embrace, accept, whatever word you want to use. You can just kind of melt into all of it. And that seems to be for lack of a better word, a wiser way in to being with the suffering, rather than constantly trying to replace it with
yes,
something
yes,
else.
yes. That's the ultimate movement of self-love. I mean, we can even describe it as, we can even describe the spiritual process as the process of learning to love your suffering.
Yeah. And love everything.
Yep,
You know,
everything about you. Yeah,
because then even when somebody else is suffering, you have total compassion, but at the same time you love that they get to have this miraculous experience for their own growth, and that you don't need to get in there and alter that for them.
Yep.
Let them have that experience, right?
Yes. Yes, I agree. Okay, well, thank you for that.
Do you have children?
No.
Oh,
Do you? I think you do.
I have a boy who's 33. He's
Uh-huh.
not a boy anymore. He's a young man. And people say, well, what's the most challenging place that you have where you see somebody else suffering and you don't feel the need to reach in and try to
That's your
change
child.
it? And it's probably my son.
I would agree. Yeah. If I had children, it would be the same. It would be always the child. Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely. Yeah.
But I'm getting better. Letting him have his journey through life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because he was going through a crisis period recently, and he called me up. He lives in the East Coast, and he called me up and he said, I really need your advice. Can we meditate together? And can we, and he was never even open to that before. And all of a sudden he sees me not just as his dad, but also as a possible remedy.
As a wiser, more experienced friend.
Yeah.
I think the best teacher is not a master, a guru, or a lord, but just a wiser, more experienced friend. And simply, in the language of suffering, we can basically say that it's just a person who've been through a little bit more suffering and had a little bit more of it. So he's a little bit more familiar with it, more intimate with it, and understands kind of what not to do about it. I always said what to do about it, but you cannot do much about it. But you can understand what not to do about it.
Yeah. It's almost like being with a person who's been through suffering, and somehow, I'm not going to say anything through anything they did or discovered, but somehow a moment occurred where they were able to hold that suffering as part of the whole in their heart. That's a good way to put it. And just even that moment of discovering that opened up a whole world of being able to do that continuously from that point on.
Yes, that's self-realization. Yes.
And then if you're with a person like that, it isn't even so much that they're wiser or more experienced. It's just that they got fortunate and they had that moment, and the moment expanded into their lives. And so then something
can also say that as the heart becomes more and more open, and has already become open, and as you said, it's a continued process. So as the heart has become open to their own suffering, it automatically became more open to other people's suffering, because fundamentally we are one and the same.
Right.
We're fundamentally all the same people, struggling with the same problems, having the same pains, the same kind of, the whole human condition throughout the ages and ages, all the same: anger, revenge, jealousy, social status, insecurity, domination, subjugation, all the same, all the same.
Yeah. I was
I'm sorry, just a second. I just wanted to add that, like, even if you look at science fiction, still the same. So human condition in some very bizarre, interesting circumstances. But what really makes science fiction interesting is that it's still about the same human condition, but how would it play out in a different circumstance? Yes, precisely. Yes.
And we've actually seen that, right? We've had astronauts fly out into space and get trapped out there, and they're calling back, Houston, we have a problem. So already we're into the world called problems. And their fear is the same as our fear. Their fear is, how am I going to get back home? How am I going to stay alive? How am I going to survive the body? Yeah. This is our mission here, seems to be to explore that realm. So
I agree.
I appreciated Thich Nhat Hanh. And I like the fact that he invited people who were in our position and had a way of teaching other people to think of themselves not as teachers, but compassionate listeners. And it's just when a person shows up with their suffering, just have ultimate compassion and just listen. Let them empty their hearts out, and something will start to shift without you reaching in there immediately trying to fix it for them.
I completely agree. Yeah,
So
I completely agree. All right. Well, that was wonderful.
I'm just noticing I'm feeling a tremendous love for you as we're talking. So just wanted to speak that out.
Mutual, my friend.
It's such a joy to put a face and a heart to our conversations that started 3 or 4 years ago.
I think maybe longer than that. Probably 5 years ago. Yeah, 5, 6 years ago we spoke on Quora.
So this is a rare pleasure for me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure entirely, my friend. We should hang out sometime.
We're not that far. You're in Redwood City, right?
I'm in Redwood City. Yeah, if I'm ever in Southern California, about Santa Barbara, I'll try to remember.
Yeah, look me up.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to get around this area to meet you wherever you'd like. So just look me up.
All right. So
more questions?
Yeah, well, we still have 15 minutes. We can talk about anything you want. I think that I think that we've made a great introduction of your path and your method and your view, and we touched upon many interesting topics. Probably, yeah, we kind of already touched on it in our recent conversation. So, an interesting question that my wife actually wanted me to bring up is, there are so many people who talk about the destination, which is free flowing, such a release, no suffering or significantly diminished level of suffering, and how it feels like. But there are much fewer people talking about the journey, and the journey can be very difficult, and the journey is actually very much about dealing with suffering in a new way, in a compassionate way, in a heartful way, in an accepting, in a loving way, not in a let me fix myself way,
right,
or what's wrong with me way, but in a very different way. So we kind of already touched on it, and your example of being a compassionate listener, that also helps open the person's heart to themselves, just being listened to non-judgmentally about someone's struggle. Of course, not everyone needs that, because there are people who kind of there should be some discernment of that, because there are people who like continually talking about the struggle, and that's kind of the way to escape the struggle. But for most people, actually, most people have so many things they never tell anyone.
Right.
So much deep struggle that they're just afraid to begin to share.
Or they think it wouldn't make a difference anyway. So,
or they think there's something wrong with them for having this struggle, or they think, and oftentimes not without a reason, but just due to their past experience, that once they start sharing their struggle, they will not be understood, or they will be judged, or they will be ridiculed. And it's very so just a non-judgmental listening presence can open up a person tremendously, open their own heart to themselves. So what I often say is that enlightened master, teacher, however you want to call it, does not transmit anything to you in any kind of direct way. They serve as a permission.
Exactly. Permission's a magic word here.
Yeah.
And
permission to be yourself.
Permission to be yourself, and all warts and all, everything that includes.
Yeah, everything that it includes. Precisely, yes. Permission not to deny or reject your suffering. Permission to be honest with yourself. Permission, and ultimately, permission to open up to that being, to that spaciousness, to that vastness, to that nothingness.
And it feels like, I mean, this comes up in my conversations with people a lot, which is the once again, the identity with a self. Because as long as I am identifying as a separate self, separate from all of energy, separate from being, separate from this miraculous thing that includes everything, as long as I'm a separate me, the chances of me being able to do that are so much more limited.
This is true.
And so at one level, the discussion is what you were saying, which is, how can I love all of me? And then at another level, the discussion and also the resonance, the realization can move to a level called, oh, wait a minute, there is no me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can't hurry that, and you
Yeah.
can't
Exactly.
you can't push somebody from one conversation to the other. So
That's
you
right. Yeah, you cannot jump over that, right? You actually cannot realize that there is no me. You cannot realize no self
right.
without first learning to love the self.
I agree.
The ego cannot let go. Like, you cannot get rid of the ego. You can only love it to
I
death.
know it's you were asking before, what are the questions I get? One of the most common ones
How
is,
do I get rid of the ego?
yeah, it's hysterical.
I
Who
think,
wants to get rid of it? Your ego.
yeah, you can't get rid of it. I actually think that it is helpful. I really like the framework in contemporary spirituality. I criticize contemporary spirituality a lot, but I criticize historic one too. So, but what I really like about it is the framework that is used oftentimes is that the ego is the struggling inner child.
Ah,
It's the wounded inner child,
right.
basically.
It is, because that's when it all starts. It
Yeah,
starts at a very young age.
precisely.
That initial contraction
Yep.
into a me
Yeah.
happens from the moment that you get called a name and you get sent to school and you have to compare yourselves to others. Immediately you contract into yourself, and that's the start of it.
That's right. And then it later on conditioned more and more with the way that society treats you.
Exactly.
Society expects you to perform.
Yeah.
Society expects you to display, to pretend also. You see, what is one of the biggest tragedy of this society is that all of the suffering, and most of the suffering, is emotional. Right. So it's
Yeah.
about the tears, anger, despair, things like that. And then what we teach our children is to hide it, is to suppress it.
Yeah.
And so of course we grow separated, we depart from it deeper and deeper and deeper. If we get messages that crying is bad, or it's not your place to get angry about anything, just say yes, mom and dad, or like,
Yeah.
yes, teacher at school, and you're right, you're always right, I'm always wrong. Then you're just going to be departing and suppressing and rejecting more and more of the anger, more and more of the tears, more and more of the suffering, and getting deeper and getting into this dream, the identification with the dreamer, deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah. I can think of at least one person who's currently running for president again. I won't mention his name. It's a really good example
No one knows his name.
of being absolutely ruined by his
Yes.
parents for life.
Oh
and
yes,
and how he's still a child in a man's body. He's
yes,
totally a 5-year-old.
yes, absolutely.
It's an extraordinary example of what you're talking about.
Yeah. But by taking this view that when we're dealing with the ego, the self, the separate self, when we discover its manifestations and processes that are happening in consciousness, of course, it's much more evident, becomes much more evident once you had a glimpse into consciousness, or the consciousness awareness is already present. It becomes much more evident. But even before it's evident, uh, as we're dealing with all of this, the view that we are dealing with a hurting, wounded, discontent, crying, hurting child is one of the most compassionate and loving views that you can take towards yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so then you find out what they're ready for to hear, or at least I seem to resonate with what are you ready for? Are you ready to go into there is no me? Or if not, if you're still, nope, I can't get there, I'm really identified with all this stuff. Okay, then let's explore that.
Let's explore that. Yeah, precisely.
And in that role, mostly what I'm going to do is listen. I'm not going to,
and allow
listen.
allow for their own inner expression. Yes, that's beautiful.
And if anything, I might offer how I similarly, I might relate to that and say, yeah, when I was this age, I had a very similar experience.
Yeah.
And in a sense, it's true, because somebody might say, what motivated you to get into spiritual seeking? And I might say, well, because I had a Jewish mother who was extremely accomplishment oriented. And she overlaid that on me. It was a form of abuse. When I was growing up, it was like, I will love you based on what you accomplish, not I will love you simply because you exist.
Exactly. That's the tragedy. Yes.
And so who knows, that in my case, it could look like that was the catalyst. Like, I've got to get away from this. I've got to go find a deeper me that doesn't have to try to comply with this overbearing person. And so maybe that was the suffering, that kicked off my search. Who knows?
That's precisely right. That's exactly what Jude meant, actually, when he said, it's not a measure of health, how well adjusted you are to profoundly sick society.
Yeah.
So when he was talking about profoundly sick society, he was talking about a society where love is made to be earned.
Yeah, exactly. Ouch. That's just ouch.
Yeah. And that, of course, leads to suffering, because then you're in a forever quest for love. And it's very difficult if you have not been given unconditional love. But if love from your caregivers, from greater society, from school, from your kindergarten teachers, have always been about how you behave, what you need, how you need to perform in order to earn it, then you will apply the same standard to yourself, and you will have this attitude of, I will never love myself until. I will never love myself until I achieve this, until I'm always trying to better yourself, and never facing the already existing discontent and self-rejection.
Yeah, that's a vicious circle.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I can be available to just receive that from somebody without, just like you said, allow it, receive it, then maybe something can happen there. Maybe there can be an opening.
It can be very healing, and relate to them, as you said. Sometimes hearing the message that you're not alone, I've been through this,
exactly,
can be very, very,
because we all have. I mean, this is it.
I had this writing a quote. I mean, one time I said to my students, all of my compassion comes from experience.
Exactly.
If I'm able to be compassionate towards you in a real authentic sense, not pity, which is, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry you're going through this, without like real understanding. Like there's a very big difference between pity and compassion. But compassion, if I'm able to be compassionate towards you, it means that at some point of time I felt exactly like you feeling right now.
Exactly. And that's once again that place where something meets nothing, because the minute that you're there with them in the same space that they are in now, because out of direct experience, not out of pity, the minute you're sharing that, they get a chance to feel not just like, oh, you've been there, but it's almost like the energy between you disperses and becomes one energy. And it's just like, oh, here we are together, and this is energy, and this is how it's expressing.
Yeah,
it's right, it's not wrong.
And I can accept it, and I can be with it too. And you just serve as a permission, and you're helping me, but your very presence. I mean, I'm talking about a student relating to a teacher, can help me experience it.
Yeah. And it seems like in my dealings with others, I do a little bit less of this because it's a lot of times it devolves down into a psychological conversation rather than a spiritual one.
It does, yeah.
It's almost like, it's almost like, do you want spiritual pointers, or do you want me to play psychologist for you for the next hour and just just hear everything you're going through in life, and and stuff like that? Because if it's the latter, that's fine. I'm happy to do that if I have the time. But there might be people better suited to that, because I seem to have a message that's something else. But there are people who are really better suited to being the psychologist that sits with you through a session like that. So I don't always pursue that. It sometimes comes, but I tend to be more guided to doing the other thing instead.
I understand. Yeah. Well, from my perspective, the ego kind of is psychology.
It is.
Basically, the psyche, the personality is all ego, and the personality always suffers. The personality,
Exactly.
the ultimate calling of a personality is to be dissolved into the infinite love of awareness,
Right.
into being one with existence, being one with the void. But the personality, from my perspective, is a kind of a mask, a coping mechanism that we
Right.
adopt to try to conform to other people around
Yeah.
us.
Try to cope. It's our
Yep.
coping mechanism.
Exactly. And you're right. Yeah. So some people are very good in exploring the difficulties of the personality without being enlightened. Like some psychologists, and there are people I know that can provide value in all kind of different ways. And there are different modalities, by the way, also to bring up the struggles of the personality on the level of consciousness and experience it.
Yeah.
Somatic release, sound healing, meditation, ecstatic dance, radical honesty. There are many different
Many.
modalities. The ultimate pointing, of course, ultimately points to something well beyond personality, in which the personality begins
Yeah.
to dissolve. But as you said, not many people are ready for the ultimate point.
Right.
The personality needs to become sufficiently small. It's like, I think that you have
That's a good point.
exhausted it so much over the course of your spiritual quest and your meditation practice. And I'm sure the decades of the meditation practice before you had this awakening experience, very deep awakening experience in the meadow. I'm sure that in the decades of meditation before that, you've gone through a lot of difficulty.
But also, I minimize the ego in those.
That's exactly my point. Yeah. So
And
you
the
have to
way
think
that I minimized
dissolving,
the ego
dissolving,
was
dissolving.
the way that the ego got minimized was because there were at least moments within those meditations where all there was silence,
Mm.
without there was awareness without being aware of something. It
Mm.
was just awareness. And there's no way that you can have even that much experience and come out of that and not go, the ego is immediately reduced, because it's like, oh, I see, I'm not this. I'm not this spinning thing. I'm the awareness that's watching that spinning thing. And if you
I don't.
visit that enough times, if you visit it even once a year during your meditations,
Yep.
that
Yep.
does indeed compress the ego into something a little bit more manageable.
Yes. Yes. But it also protests it, doesn't it?
Say it again.
But it also protests it, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh, of course.
And in this protests and tantrums and objections, as they're experienced in awareness and they're witnessed, this also minimizes and dissolves the ego.
Right. I think I had at least a couple of early experiences where there was a real protest. There was a rebellion,
Yep.
and it was like, I'm going to go out and have lots of sex and eat whatever I want and satisfy the ego. And then there was a place where I could look at that desire, all those desires, from the place of pure awareness. And it was like, okay, those are just more machinations of the mind. It's not significant. I thought it was significant. I thought it was important, but it's not. It's it's just
Uh, it's not even pleasure compared to the pleasure of awareness.
no, it isn't. You're
You
right.
know, compared to the bliss of abiding awareness, sex, food, uh, alcohol, their gambling, career success, social approval. They're not even pleasures. They're actually imaginary pleasures.
And at some point they're even painful
Yes, they,
because you revisit them and you go, "Damn, I didn't get
yeah,
anything out of that." That
they
was
are actually. Yeah. They are actually pains because they're an attempt to escape the pain.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But like you said,
Disappear.
that's a refined level that a lot of people may never experience or just don't even get
Yeah,
close to.
yeah.
And so here we are.
But even if they don't, you see, I think that uh, opening up the heart to themselves, being being able to be present in intimacy with another, being more honest with yourself or the other, still leads to better life
It does.
for yourself and for others involved. And we can even say that uh, psychologists actually unknowingly, maybe most of them unknowingly, but they help people move deeper and deeper towards the ultimate realization.
Yeah. I actually did see a psychiatrist when I was younger because after that experience at 5 where I saw everything as a dream, in my starting between 9 all the way up through the age of 12, I started having a lot of depersonalization experience.
Mm,
And I felt like I was dreaming during the day as well as at night, and it freaked me out a little bit.
you're kind of worried.
And
Would
I
you?
was like, I'm not sure if I can live like this. This is frightening me. And so I did actually go and see. Fortunately, the psychiatrist that I saw was a long time Zen meditator.
Oh, you got lucky. Oh my God, you really got lucky because what really needs to happen when something is going through this is just learning to stay with the fear, allow the fear, witness the mind, which the and very few psychiatrists would well maybe not few but at least a very large portion of a psychiatrist would try to
Give
put
you
you
a drug.
patient, uh, pathologize it in
Uh-huh.
some way. You see, but it's absolutely normal.
Yeah, it was. But like you said, within society, I didn't have a reference point that it was
Mhm.
absolutely normal.
Mhm.
The reference point
Cool.
was, you're weird.
Yeah,
I don't feel like that. You're something odd, and then you got to fix that.
yeah, yeah.
But I think actually through that Zen psychiatrist that I saw, I was able to more and more uh, expand into it rather than push it away. And
Oh, that is so beautiful. And especially, how old were you at the
well,
time?
the depersonalization started when I was 9.
So you were working with this Zen psychologist or psychiatrist when you were like 9, 10, 11.
Yeah,
Oh my God, you got so lucky because like most people at that time, if they started, especially considering your age, because it was like what almost 60 years ago.
yeah,
So even nowadays, most of the psychiatrists or psychologists that would be working with a child like that would diagnose it as depersonalization, paranoia, maybe paranoid schizophrenia, whatnot, would put you on medication and stuff like that. And 60 years ago, in the middle, pretty much of the 20th century, you somehow stumbled into an understanding psychiatrist, which didn't
got lucky.
do that, but instead kind of reassured you that it's okay. It's oh my God, this was really a blessing. I'm sure that it was just as important for your spiritual path as everything that happened afterwards. I'm working with so many people that have been through kind of a not so understanding psychiatric approach.
Yeah, sure. And also,
be really traumatizing.
do you find that you also have people who come to you who are having a level of awakening? Apparently, they're moving into other states, and they come to you because it's frightening or because it's.
Oh yes, yes, of
And
course.
then they're like, "What should I do about this? I'm waking up every morning and
Yep.
feeling like this."
Lots of fear. Yeah. In fact, like it's mostly people contact me when they go and get stuff. So it's like while everything is okay, you meditate, maybe watch Satsangs, hang out on my forum, read my stuff, and then the fear comes, paranoia comes. You start seeing the character. It all can get extraordinary disorienting.
Yes.
Extraordinary disorienting transformation, extraordinary. And so this is where so I need to speak to someone, and so it's important, I think, for the teacher to be available, well, to the extent of ability, of course, but.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of fear. I went through lots of fear myself, years of fear, and you have over the course of your life. I mean, in your case, it started at like 9, pretty much. This fear, the fear of letting go of the dream character, is what is perceived to be the fear of death in the separated state.
Absolutely, it is death.
So it is yes.
Really, the only death that ever happens is ego.
Yep.
There really is no physical.
Yeah.
It just appears to be.
So it's a very kind of real and intense fear.
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's mortal. It's mortal fear.
Yeah,
and
existential. Yes.
And it would be different if when you're going through the fear and somebody talked about that you're not this me, you're not a self.
Yeah.
That it would be different. It would be nice if you had a reference point for what they were talking about, but there is none available. So if you're inviting them, okay, you can either be this ego or you can be egoless, and you're headed towards egolessness, which is why you're so scared.
Yeah.
And then they say, yeah, but I don't have a clue what that would feel like. I only know what this feels like. To me, that's just foreign. So I'm no less scared.
It doesn't help with the fear itself. Nothing helps with the fear itself. Right. Basically. So nothing is going to help you, and I'm talking about you, but just whoever's watching. Nothing is going to help with fear. Nothing is going to help with tears. Nothing is going to help with anger. The things will still arise, and the things will still get experienced. What really helps is just knowing that there are other people who went through it and they're okay. That this is how your heart opens up to yourself. That it's not going to be like this forever, even though the ego oftentimes like to tell that it's going to be like this forever. Oh, it's never going to stop. It's never going to end. We should end our life. This is horrible. I'm never going to get out of it. All of these are lies, complete lies and bullshit of the mind. So it's possible to slowly sink into this experience deeper and deeper and deeper. And there's beauty, there's tremendous beauty beyond all of this. There's tremendous insight.
Yeah.
The deepest insight comes from difficult experiences. That's part of growth. So just knowing that, having presence, loving and non-judgmental presence, supportive presence, maybe a supportive community, can make a huge difference. And also not pathologizing it. Not like there's something wrong with you for having all of those experiences and you need to be medicated. I mean, sometimes it helps. No problem. Sometimes it's a temporary measure. Sometimes medication helps, but not like pathologizing this whole experience.
Exactly. I'm reminded of Suzanne Siegel. She wrote a book called Collision with the Infinite, in which she stepped on a bus in France and had an immediate disappearance of herself completely, and had to function like that for years afterwards, try to find a way to function, but there was nothing inside of her and she couldn't figure out how to do it. And it was very, very frightening for her. And everybody she went to pathologized it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's tragic.
So she finally she went to a place in Marin County that I'm familiar with called Green Gulch, and she met with a Roshi there, and he was the first person to say, you're having what everybody is looking for. You don't realize
Mm,
how blessed you are,
yes,
you know, and
exactly.
turned it around from a pathology into a golden experience. And
That's
from that
beautiful.
point on, she was able to, find a way to be with it from the heart.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes, yes. So I think that from that perspective, what you're doing and what I'm doing, what both of us are doing, is very important because there are a lot of people to whom it happens, and they aren't aware about uh, spirituality at all.
Right.
So, like the real deep no self spirituality is still very very far from mainstream, and the kind of
Very.
crystal's new age spirituality is not going to help you there when the self like disappears and there's fear and there's resistance to let go deeper and deeper into this experience of expansiveness. um, and you go to anyone in the mainstream society, they pathologize it,
Yeah.
or ridicule you, or like that's hard.
Yeah. So thank you, and
And thank you.
for being a point of reception for that, a point of openness and compassionate listening for that. I'll try to be more like that myself, and
Thank you, my
because it
friend.
seems like that's really important at this
Thank you.
stage.
I think so, yeah. I think so.
It's wonderful.
Yes, on this beautiful wonderful note, I think we can finish our conversation. It's been about an hour and 15 minutes. And thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure
Yeah, me too.
for me to host you. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Much, much love to you from the bottom of my heart. Thank
Yeah,
you for what you're doing. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that I will meet you in person one day.
and if not, let's stay in touch.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We can do more. We'll see how this goes. We'll see if I can collect more questions. Maybe your students also might have questions for me, just like mine for you. We can do some shared satsang maybe in the
I
future.
was about to say, I guarantee you, if I offered a satsang and said that you were coming on board, that we would have a minimum of 60 to 80 people.
Oh, let's do it then. I would love to. I'd
You
love
know,
to. Absolutely. Let's
I
ask.
usually in our satsangs we usually have a minimum of 40 to 50. But
Oh,
if
beautiful.
I say we have a special guest,
I'd love to come. I'd love to come. We can answer questions together,
that would be wonderful.
offering both of our perspectives.
And
Uh,
most of the people who have been part of my circle also know about you from
oh,
Quora and
beautiful.
from other places. So your name will immediately light up a recognition for it.
I'd love to come, my friend. I'd love to come.
So we're leaving for the summer to go to the East Coast.
Mhm.
So probably this satsang that we're talking about planning will happen in either November or December, if that's okay with you.
Perfect. Yes, absolutely perfect. But by the way, I'm also doing. Oh, I think I mentioned it, but I don't know if you do it. But my wife and I we do intensive integration retreats in Northern California.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
in Redwood
I've,
City.
what's that?
In Redwood City.
No, no, not in Redwood City. We usually rent a house somewhere like 3 minute drive, like close to Sacramento or like close to the mountains, somewhere in the rural area with lots of acreage, so that we're in private. It's usually for about 15 people. 3 day experience. So we do this every 3 months. We hosted three. So we have on my Facebook and on my website there are pictures and video recap and
Great.
testimonials from students. Yeah, lots of. So from Southern California. I mean, I don't know how many of your students are local, but from Southern California, it's not a very long drive. So
No, I have students all over India and Pakistan who are
yeah, yeah.
willing to come
Yeah.
be with me in person. But people within the states, they'll hop on a plane in a minute or a car in a minute for something that close. So
Yeah, we it's beautiful, intense experiences. Like everyone cries, everyone laughs. Like we feel lighter. There's a big flowering of intimacy there. So it's kind of a very love-filled environment. Exactly what we were talking about. This kind of allowing, intimate environment.
well, I like that kind of. I really enjoy. I've had a few opportunities to give retreats with multiple teachers,
Mm,
and it's just it adds so
yeah.
much richness to it. It's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe one day we'll do a retreat together. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah. Well, beautiful, my friend. Love you so much. Thank you for
You.
coming. Thank you for coming.
My love to your wife. I
Oh,
haven't I haven't
well,
met her yet, but she introduced herself in her questions, and she
oh
was
yeah.
asking me questions,
I'll pass you love to her.
and I'll pass your love to my wife,
Oh, wonderful.
who
Yes.
is, by the way, she's a dance teacher. She's a conscious dance teacher.
Oh, wow. So
She's an
this it's conscious dance. So kind of a releasing or trance-like form of dance.
exactly. You remember five rhythms?
No, no, I
Well,
don't.
it's a form of dance where you start off slow and build up to a full cathartic emotional release, and
Oh,
then
that's
bring it back down again.
amazing.
She's been doing that for 20 years, and she's really good at it.
Would she consider maybe in the future, especially when we do a little larger satsangs, but even for 15 people, I mean, would she consider also that teaching us maybe?
Absolutely,
It
she'd
would
love
it would be wonderful. Yeah,
it.
we've been looking. Mostly it's been myself, but we've been looking for sound healers and ecstatic dance teacher or this form of dance teacher. So to introduce more form of uh, different practice, because for me it's mostly meditation, presence, of course. Eye gazing, we do eye gazing, inquiry, all sorts of different psychological inquiries
Yeah,
uh, that could lead to a lot of opening and tears and insight, dropping away of some false beliefs of unworthiness,
yeah,
things like that. That's what I mostly do. But there are other forms of practice which I'm not an expert in, like dancing, somatic release, sound healing, and I think uh, introducing more practitioners and looking at it, working at the ego, at the healing of the inner child from different perspectives might resonate with some people very deeply. It would be wonderful. We'd love to have someone like that.
yeah. At the end of every one of her sessions, people are transformed. So I know that something's happening there.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, great,
All right,
great.
my friend.
All right. Well, thank you,
Thank you so much. We'll see you
thank
soon.
you, my friend. Thank you. Bye bye.